afternoon. Can everyone see me over the screen? My name's Colleen Foster. I manage the City of Oceanside Solid Waste and Recycling Program, as well as the city's Zero Waste Program. I must say before I get started, this symposium, I think is it our third or our fourth symposium? Fourth symposium. I think it's one of the events I get most nervous about in speaking. I mean, I've gone and spoken with Rick and Anna in Peru and Australia. I'm not speaking to our peers, and so today I'm speaking in front of the people that I see as leaders in our region and that I've been fortunate enough to work with and learn from. So excuse me if I get a bit nervous. So before I get started in talking about zero waste, how it can be a benefit to our businesses and our community as well as our planet, I'd like to actually start with what zero waste actually means. What I actually had in my notes was I wanted to read for you, and if you have not already referenced it, I really encourage you to look it up. It's the Zero Waste International Alliance. It's the definition of zero waste. And in the second two paragraphs of that definition, it really incorporates what zero waste is really about. It's really about taking a look at our resources, taking a look at how we're wasting those resources, and how can we do better with that product life cycle. And it really ties all the elements. A lot of times I think we get stuck in silos. So I'm the trash talker at the city, and someone else is doing water conservation, somebody else is doing energy or climate change, but we're really all talking about the same planet and the same resources that are being utilized. And when we talk about zero waste, we're really talking about the mismanagement of resources and the need to redesign and do better. So I really wanted to reference that definition. The City of Oceanside, our zero waste resolution and plan, has adopted that definition. OUSD, our school district, one of the first school districts in the nation to adopt zero waste, has adopted that definition. We've got leaders from Zuia here, Rick Anthony, so I think it's a really important reference, and it's a good understanding to tie the nexus of zero waste to other environmental initiatives. So part of that conversation, and I really want you to be thinking about that today in all of these presentations and within your own career, is, what is waste? And what is the difference between waste and wasting? And one of the problems I think that we see in education and outreach is, people get desensitized to what we're talking about. First of all, if you looked at my educational materials out of Oceanside 5 years ago, all of my materials would reference trash. So put it in your trash container, what is trash? I'm the trash talker, etc. Where in reality, what is trash? And when I talk to students and I talk to people in our community, trash is like, well, it's paper or it's some type of product. And I'm like, well, what does that really mean? What is paper? What is paper made out of? And it's a resource. So really getting away from, terminology that is dead end and really defining our services and what we're talking about with our community in a correct way is very important. So if you look at all my new outreach materials over the past few years in our zero waste community, I'm talking about that's the waste cart or that's the landfill cart. Waste is a loss in the chain of manufacturing. Waste is a failure. We've obviously done something wrong if we're sending it to a landfill and we're not managing those resources. We have a limited amount of resources. If you have not already seen it, please look up Story of Stuff. It's a great animated, story about really how we're acting and consuming as we live in a planet of infinite resources. We live in a planet of limited resources, and zero waste is definitely an avenue in which we can do better. And it's an avenue that can tie to all the other components. So on my slide, I've referenced net zero. I really like the net zero initiative. It came on with the EPA in 2011. There's some pilot projects out there. I think that should be explored more. Net zero is essentially the philosophy that the military follows. It's about net zero waste, net zero water loss, net zero energy, and even net positive energy. So where you're implementing practices that create additional energy. So in all of those components, we're eliminating the failure and eliminating the waste. So that's kind of my philosophy slide. I'll get back into Oceanside and how we're supporting our community. what I wanted to talk about today is not only how it's benefiting for our community, it's also benefiting for our businesses and our planet. And for our community in Oceanside, if you don't already know, Oceanside is a zero-waste community. We passed our resolution in 2010, and then we passed our plan in 2012. And many of the people in this room were a major component of that initiative. And since then, our community has gone from an average of a 50% recycling rate to over 70%, to most recently, we're between 68 and 70%, because we're really struggling, as we increase participation, increase recycling, what is left, and why are consumers buying more and more of that? So as we grow into a larger consumeristic society and go down the road of disposables, that's going to be an increasing challenge for us to achieve our higher diversion goals. But some of the programs and some of the campaigns that have really worked for our zero waste community and helped with our success, that have served the community, really is some of the programs: recycling, standardizing, wasting less. So one of the big aspects that we've done with our services and our contract over the past several years, our contract was written after our zero waste resolution. Our zero waste resolution defined the programs that are implemented in our solid waste franchise system, and that's very important if you have that opportunity. If you're coming up to your franchise agreement being near its end term, then you need to be talking to your community about what their sustainability goals are, and those aspects need to be driving the language in that franchise, which is why you're seeing in the city of Los Angeles, their new franchises is now including food recovery, it's including reuse markets, etc. So solid waste services of the future should not be talking about solid waste. It's really resource management services. And so that's a big component of what we've done with our contract and with our services over the past few years, is that we've made it more difficult. We've created barriers towards wasting and made it much more simpler and accessible towards whether it's reuse, source reduction, or recycling. And a lot of that has been through essentially standardizing and incentivized recycling. So if I take that to the service level, in the past, my businesses were given, smaller businesses were given the option of, you get your trash commercial carts, and then if you want to pay more, you can get an additional recycling cart. So what do we think that resulted in? That resulted in hundreds of businesses that had trash-only accounts. So we changed that dynamic. We changed commercial cart service to be one trash cart and one recycling cart automatically. Residentially, our newer contract, we did a pay-as-you-throw type system. So the smaller cart gives you a lower rate versus the larger waste cart. And the rate is based off the size of your waste cart. What was interesting in that, in 2012, we initially started that service. We told our community, sign up for the small cart, waste cart, and save money. And you get up to 2 green waste carts and up to 3 recycling carts. And we got a small group of people to sign up. I think we got about 5,000 customers to sign up for that smaller waste cart and really take advantage of the program. And the past year, we started to think, okay, why is not everyone taking advantage of this? A large portion of our community, about 30% of our community, are seniors. They're 1 to 2 person households. We have a military community. A lot of them are single person households. And so why aren't more people signing up to this program? They can save money. Well, we made some simple changes, and that simply wasn't within our education and within our customer service language. So now when somebody calls up to start their residential service, they're told automatically, okay, you're signing up for your solid waste and recycling service. Your standard service will be delivered on such and such date at this rate. And that standard service is now the 35-gallon waste cart, the smaller waste cart, and then your green waste and your recycling. And then they're like, well, I want a bit larger cart. Okay, if you want to pay more, I will send you a larger cart. And my numbers skyrocketed, and it was insane. I think my customer care hated me for a couple months when everybody was going towards the standard solid waste cart. So, I think really just standardizing and incentivizing wasting less is key. Other programs that have really benefited our community has really bought into those programs, and they've been the drivers towards, positive, sustainable legislation in our community, is our Zero Waste Schools initiative. I haven't heard a lot of people talking about that today, but there is no better way than to connect to your families in your neighborhood other than the child in that kitchen with 175,000 residents and 25,000 students. Those students being my zero waste ambassadors in the kitchen, they can call out the parents and the grandparents, and that's the best way you can educate our community. So one of our strongest programs, the programs the city invests in, is our Zero Waste Schools initiative. And we work with those schools over a semester long to take them from anywhere from a 10% to a 50 to a 70% recycling rate. And that's created cost savings to the school district of anywhere between $80,000 and $100,000 a year. So that's when we get into zero waste is not just an environmental solution, it's also a business solution that can be profitable to your community. We've also expanded upon our community gardens and workshops. There's Zero Waste or Green Oceanside sustainability workshops. This has kind of been going on and growing with the schools program, because as the students have become indoctrinated in Green Oceanside, the parents have become indoctrinated into Green Oceanside, and they want to learn how to compost. They want to learn how to do better. They want local food systems to be accessible. So all of these programs have started to sprout, and not just out of the city, they sprouted from a grassroots level. And one of the wonderful things with being with Oceanside, I've been with the community for 10 years now. When I first started, I actually came from UC Davis in the Bay Area, and I came down here, and I was all about saving the planet. And I entered into a very conservative community that was concerned about, resources, economic development in the face of crime and public nuisance. And what I was able to build with our community, because I found a strong community that believed in their community, I was able to build a pride with my team for their sustainability efforts. Everyone was proud of Oceanside, around our oceans, around our parks, around our schools. And so when you build that pride, they will join you with your sustainability goals. So today, Green Oceanside used to be just my team implementing in our community, and today Green Oceanside and our Zero Waste program is a program of our community. And more, I get calls and emails about, why are we not doing this? It's not me having to go out and put on a workshop where nobody attends. It's about the community demanding those workshops and wanting those types of resources. And so that's really driven other aspects of our Zero Waste program, such as our Zero Waste farmers markets and events. Our markets, weekly markets, they came to us. They said, we want to go zero waste. They banned plastic bags before we were even talking about it at the city level or the state level. We've also had other programs, our reuse initiative. We've got a great partnership with Waste Management and Goodwill as part of our Curb Up initiative. We're looking to eliminate bulky items from going to the landfill by giving them a second chance. And going back to changing the terminology, we just put out a new piece of education. We no longer call services bulky item services or cleanup weeks. We call it what it is. We offer a donation week and we offer a landfill week. And so we give people the choice to do right or to do wrong. And that's been instrumental in really changing the habits in our community. And then other goals we're looking at, obviously, as we face organics, it's a social, economical, and environmental solution. Why are we feeding landfills when we can feed people? We haven't talked about it too much today. I would love to have heard Chuck talk a little more today. But, anywhere from 10 to 20% of the food we're throwing away is edible when it hits the landfill. And yet 1 in 7 San Diegans are food insecure. 1 in 5 children in San Diego are food insecure. So we really need to drive the expansion of food recovery networks. And I call it food recovery. I don't call it food donation. If food is still edible, it is still a valuable resource. And so we need to be able to drive the food recovery networks to feeding social agencies, but we need to make sure those social agencies are sustainable and are not dependent on subsidies or donations. So I think it's an excellent business opportunity to expand upon. Oceanside, we've also had our yard waste composting program since the 90s. We've been proactive to develop a solution for organics at a local level so that we are covered, essentially. So our material from within a 10-mile radius is collected, and it's sold within a 20-mile radius. We're not trucking materials off. You'll see it in the next few slides. When, really looking at organics management, we need to look at decentralized systems. We need to look at local food systems, not just regional solutions or solutions that are going to require us to transport organics hundreds of miles away. We need to get away from that type of system. And so going towards organics and energy, we're also looking at water opportunity and co-digestion. And then at the end of the day, we need to eliminate what's left over. And that's when you get into extended producer responsibility. I've kind of alluded that earlier. Zero waste makes business sense. Mandatory recycling, AB 341, when that hit us, it wasn't that difficult to deal with because we had already established a rate system that incentivized recycling. So today, when I work with businesses and they're non-compliant for recycling, when I get into that door, I talk to them, I take a look at their waste bills, and in most situations, I can find a cost savings for them. So it becomes a positive situation. Actually, it's kind of funny. We had limited staffing resources, so we combined our recycling inspections with our stormwater inspections. So now stormwater inspectors, when they go out to do the mandatory annual fats, oils, and greases inspection, as well as industrial inspections, they are also inspecting for recycling services as well as sustainability measures. And by implementing this type of efficiency, we've gone from 700 non-compliant businesses to less than 100 non-compliant businesses. And that's because of the accessibility and the savings that they can see through that process. We developed a Green Oceanside business network. I really believe in green business certification programs, but when we set up this program, my team, over the past 3 years, we researched a lot of the existing certifications. And what we found was there was a lack of sustainability, or the bar was set so high, it was difficult for anyone other than your large corporations to prove sustainability. I mean, they had to be LEED, they had to do all these amazing infrastructure things that some of your most basic businesses or local restaurants could not really do at that moment, or seemed so hard that they wouldn't even try. So we develop our network to be inclusive versus exclusive. So we set a very simple baseline. You need to be in compliance with your water, your stormwater regulations. You need to be recycling. Here are some other things that you can implement to improve your sustainability practices. We get them in the door, we make them a member of the network, and then we work with them to do better. And we market and we promote them to the point that they're so excited, they're seeing the customers that are coming in because they're a network member, they're part of this greater community, they're stewards of our community. They then say, we want to do more. And that's that same business that 5 years ago told me, I'm not interested in sustainability. That doesn't do me any good. That doesn't do profit for me. That's too difficult. I can't afford it. And today they are moving farther than I would have ever expected them to go. So I think it's a really great approach. We also support them through marketing. We have a Green Oceanside app that provides personalized shopping options. So people, when they come to Oceanside, they can shop based upon their environmental morals, and our green businesses are identified. So it's a really great program that I think we've gone to over 125 businesses signed up, and we're growing. So zero waste for the planet. It was kind of funny today. Richard, called me over the weekend, and he's like, Colleen, can you do the planet section? And I was like, of course. Like I said, when I initially started with Oceanside, I was all about the planet. Came from Davis. You could have called me a tree hugger back in those days. And I go into this conservative community, and I achieve, unanimous support for our zero waste resolution with a council that was extremely conservative at the time. Unanimous support of our zero waste plan. I've achieved the ability to get support to build a large-scale food recovery kitchen. We're looking at organics, and the reason for that is we've changed our tone. We've really been able to explain that sustainability and zero waste, it's good for the environment, but it's also good for profit, and it's good for our community, and it gets people in your community really happy about what's happening and more supportive of you. So very rarely do I actually go up and talk about the planet, so it's kind of funny. I'm like, oh yeah, the planet's the reason we're all here. Zero waste, from a planet perspective, there's a huge impact. And, you could talk about the people, you can talk about the product, but at the end of the day, you're not going to have product, and you're not going to have human resources if we don't have a planet to support them. So zero waste really conserves natural resources. Simple examples, when our school district committed to zero waste, and they finally, made the decision to eliminate all styrofoam trays at their schools, they eliminated 15,000 styrofoam trays a day. The impact on, the environment from a litter perspective, the impact on the environment from natural resource perspective is huge. If one school district can eliminate 15,000 trays a day of styrofoam, what could every school district in San Diego do? And really taking a look at that impact. So I've also seen lifestyle changes become the norm. I do not remember going to conferences 5 years ago and everybody had a reusable water bottle, or our water was being served in glasses. Today, everyone has that. It's cool. You get a bottle to match the way you look, etc. So it is really becoming the norm and the expectation. And our newer generation coming into the workplace expect us to be responsible stewards for their generation and our community and for the resources. And they're going to choose your job based upon that. Local food systems versus commercial food systems, we need to bring it back to San Diego, keeping food local. You know, there is no reason why we're transporting food or even organics for processing across counties, across regions. We need to build local food systems that really foster food recovery and also provide for local distribution and eliminate transportation barriers. I work with my city's climate action plan. There's a ton of time and resources put towards, you know, getting people to go towards hybrid vehicles or building bike lanes or, you know, bike share or carpool programs, all of which are amazing. But if we simply eliminated the dozens and dozens of solid waste vehicles going to landfills hundreds of miles every day, we would eliminate so much more in the measure of greenhouse gas emissions than these smaller base programs. So I really think, you know, looking at the zero waste hierarchy, reduce, reuse, recycle, you know, compost and energy, and we look at that and we follow that from a full sustainability measure, you're really going to see the GHG emissions, and it goes beyond just what the solid waste sector is normally attributed to. So when you look at climate action plans, they're looking at this pie chart of greenhouse gas emissions and the various sectors that impact greenhouse gas emissions. And the pie chart, unfortunately, associates solid waste towards materials from landfills. It does not take into account the transportation of all of our products for consumption and for disposal. And so we really need to redefine that to get a true cost accounting of zero waste within our climate action plans. So creating awareness and promoting conservation is key towards those efforts. And I just want to end it I couldn't do any of this without my team. We are a village, and I consider our Green Oceanside team to also be an extension of each and every one of you, because I've learned from each and every one of you over the past decade, and I've got my contact information. So thank you very much for having me here.